Hello and welcome. Today we'll be learning about Goblin Hierarchy and how it works. Note that this information is from the Warcraft RPG and it might be considered not canon, even though the fact that it should be canon because a lot of stuff explained in the RPG books that Blizzard just doesn't want to explain. So we're just gonna think a part of the RPG is canon despite them wanting us to think it's not. So let's go with the lowest of the lowest. The lowest rank is that of a slave. Now, you see, in Goblin society, slavery is illegal in a way. Slavery is more like an open secret. People are more hush hush about it because they don't want to offend their customers that do not have those inclinations. Slaves have no rights, of course, and are used for the harshest manual labor and, well, other deplorable pursuits. You can see slaves in the goblin starting zone, which are basically the trolls that you have to beat up at some point. Now, above the slaves are the civilians and workers. They do have more rights than slaves, but they also make the biggest part of the goblin population. They are lower class workers. They endure long hours for little pay, and of course, no thanks. Now, a lot of civilians and workers aspire to become the next um, class, which is the middle class, and that includes traders and merchants. Now, you see, ranking traders and merchants is a little bit difficult because there will be traders and merchants that are just scrapping by for survival, trying to sell their stuff, and there will be pretty rich traders and merchants. But even with that, traders and merchants make the middle class of society. As hard as it might be to put them into a certain category, they're the middle class guys. Traders are the guys that just move around from one place to another and try to sell their stuff, while merchants set up shop somewhere permanently, or until something happens and they have to move it out. Now, these guys usually sell goods. Sometimes handmade, sometimes procured through other means. But they do that all under the jurisdiction of the trade prince. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Most civilians and workers really aspire to be this. It offers a more comfortable life and it's a little bit better. Now, above the traders and merchants stand the trade fleet ranks. Now, you see, this is more like a captain position. You work under a trade prince directly in this position. The captain of a vessel, the admiral of a fleet, in this case. You see, because usually admirals are assigned to run more than one trade fleet, which are the higher ups of the normal captains that only do one ship. But occasionally a captain can run his own private merchant vessel, which means he is an independent goblin that has his own ship. He still has to pay taxes to his trade prince, though. Now, above the trade fleet ranks and their disposition, and above the trader and the merchant, stands an controversial figure, the slaver. And well, slavers are wealthy merchants who sell slaves. Now, goblin slavers usually run kids on slave rings, or they simply own a few slaves for their own personal use. Now, normally, trade princes condone slave rings and slavery. But as I've mentioned in the beginning, they're an open secret that it's allowed. They keep quiet about it because they have no wish to offend any sensible customers who might object to their lucrative line of business. Ooh, now above the slaver and wealth, as also well dependable on wealth, is the baron. Now, a trade prince will have multiple barons serving in certain lands and holdings. They act as magistrates of a sort. Their goal is to make sure the trade prince's stuff is going well. Like a governor, for example. That also works. Above the baron now stands the mogul, the hands of the trade princes. Moguls are entrepreneurs, goblins who ran various businesses that makes them a lot of money. Moguls can deal with deforesting, drilling, mining, and other things of the sorts throughout the whole world. They really have a knack for making money, and one good example for a mogul run business is the venture company, even though I think they have their own trade prince. Excuse me. And finally, to finish up the hierarchy and reach the pinnacle of this discussion, we must look at the highest rank available in Goblin Hierarchy, the Trade Prince. Usually there are five, but sometimes there can be more Trade Princes. They are rulers in the Goblin world. Each of Trade Prince can runs his own little army, made out of his moguls, his barons, and other sorts of enforcers. Now, they usually hold land around Azeroth or somewhere in other places, and together, all the trade princes form the Trade Coalition. I'll get into the Trade Coalition as well because it's a pretty interesting and quick thing. So usually, the Trade Coalition is the name of the Goblin Merchant Empire. So basically, in the Trade Coalition, you have cartels like Galliwix's cartel, the Steam Widow cartel, and other cartels and trade princes that work together for a common good. If you want to look at the Horde, for example, in this current state where they have a council, well, the Trade Coalition is basically that, but only with goblins. Now, this Trade Coalition is run by the Undermined Trade Princes, which is the Goblin Trade Princes. It's a huge and far-reaching and massively complicated organization. It has command over a lot of trade fleets. Normally, of course, the Trade Coalition condones smuggling and slavery. But of course, that is an open secret in Goblin society. And, well, what more can be said? That's not really the biggest information out there. Just the fact that, well, the coalition controls much of the commerce throughout the world of Warcraft. Which means if something going bad with your inflation, for example in Stormwind, probably the goblins are responsible for that. Excuse me. It makes sense for the goblins to be responsible for that anyway. And that was it. Now, Yeah, that's Goblin Hierarchy for you, and the Trade Coalition. There's not much to be known about to be said about the Trade Coalition besides the things I've already mentioned. But I'll go through this one finally. Usually, the Trade Coalition has very little influence over Revelgaz. Now, Revelgaz is a baron, and he's the de facto ruler of Booty Bay. And indeed, raiders attempt to go under, above, or around the coalition's head. Goblin barons are allegedly there to serve as magistrates over the land and holdings owned by trade princes. Yeah, it doesn't tell us much. So most information about the council, the trade council in the RPG, is not that big. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I hope I'll see you next time.